the United States. It's not a totalitarian state, so you don't get a propaganda line. What you get is something much more subtle but similar, namely a vigorous debate within a framework of fixed and unquestionable presuppositions. And it's those presuppositions that are the propaganda line. So take, I don't know, say the war in Vietnam, or anything you like. War in Vietnam, the presupposition is, well, a quote from the left end, Anthony Lewis. We began with blundering efforts to do good, but by 1969 we found that it was a disaster which was too costly for ourselves. So therefore we should get out. That's the left. The right says, you're selling us out, we can win if we go in and fight harder. All of it assumes that the U.S. attack against South Vietnam was a defense of South Vietnam, that it was an effort to do good, and then we can debate the tactics. That's perfect propaganda. If dictators had any brains, they'd do the same thing. But what's interesting is the nature of the criticism. It's purely tactical. You know, you thought the tactics weren't going to work. They worked fine. So therefore, everything was right. It's the only question you can ask. We didn't ask that question about the Russian invasion of Afghanistan. Or take, say, the Russian invasion of, take, say, Czechoslovakia in 1968. Tactics worked fine. You know, didn't kill a lot of people. So what was wrong with it? Well, we all know what was wrong with it. You know, it didn't matter that it worked. It was irrelevant. It didn't matter that they didn't kill many people. What mattered is what they were up to. But that kind of question you cannot ask about ourselves. If you ask that about ourselves, in fact, you know, it doesn't even happen. But there's a whole, just to prevent the heresy, even though it barely exists, there's a very impressive array of devices that have been constructed just in case the heresy of being honest ever arises. There are even terms that are used, like moral relativism. Moral relativism means we apply the same standards to ourselves that we apply to others. Or moral equivalence. Absurd notion, I think, was invented by Gene Kirkpatrick, as far as I recall, to prevent looking at ourselves. Or take, say, anti-Americanism. That's a notion that's used, as far as I know, only in totalitarian states. So in the Soviet Union, the old Soviet Union, to be anti-Soviet was a terrible crime. If under the Brazilian generals, to be anti-Brazilian was a crime. You know, were the Russian dissidents anti-Russian? Of course not. No, they were opposed to the policies of the state, in favor of helping the people. But in an intellectual culture that has no conception of democracy, it becomes anti-Americanism.